Hey everyone, welcome to the Camino Cafe. I am so excited that you are here with us again, and I so appreciate you watching the videos on our YouTube channel and also listening to our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. And you know, my hope with the Camino Cafe is that it gives us a chance for pilgrims to share their stories and for us to hear the stories of the Camino or whatever pilgrimages the people that we're speaking to have been on. And I'm really enjoying doing this, learning so much, and I feel so blessed to be able to do these interviews. And I just ask everyone, if you're enjoying them, you know, leave us a comment, because we like talking to pilgrims. We love getting the comments, and if you can give us a thumbs up, or I don't know, maybe a 5-star rating, that would be really awesome, so that more people would know that they're fun videos or podcasts to listen to. So I want to get started with tonight's interview, and I'm so delighted that David Walsh is here with us. And Mark and I first met during the pandemic. Well, we've only known each other virtually, but I feel like I've known him this whole time. And we first met at a Facebook group called Pilgrimage in Place, which Annie O'Neill, 6 Ways to Santiago, Annie O'Neill, started right pretty much in the beginning of the pandemic. And Mark and I were just talking, and we both credit being a part of that community for helping us to get through some of the hardest days of this lockdown. And so Mark, welcome. Thank you for coming to the Camino Cafe tonight.
Thank you so much, Leigh. It's lovely. I was going to say to be in the same room as you, but I guess it's as close as we'll get.
It's as close as we can get. And, you know, I just want to recognize that Mark is in Australia, and unfortunately they've been having some more lockdowns. And so we just wish everyone there the best. It's been a tough year, and we're not quite out of it yet. And we're sure hoping that the whole world heals. So I just wanted to get to, you've done the Portuguese Camino, and what year did you do your Camino?
So Leigh, yeah, I'm here joining you from Australia on the country of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and that's Birrarung River, Yarra River just behind me, and it's a really sacred place. And my first Camino was in 2016 when I walked from Saint-Jean to Leon, and then from Leon to Santiago a few months after that. And then, as you said, I walked the Portuguese from Tui to Finisterre in 2018. And then over Christmas 2019, 2020, I walked from Santarém, which is about 100K out of Lisbon, to Porto. And if they ever let us leave Australia again, I hope to walk from Porto to Santiago with some members of my family. At the moment, we've got that scheduled for 2023 in May. So fingers crossed, we might get there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I want to walk that same one with my dad. So I understand that feeling, right? Like, I just want to get back there. And now you've also done some pilgrimages in the Holy Land, right?
Yeah, I first visited that part of the world in the year 2000. As a pilgrim, and moved through Jordan, Israel, Palestine, Turkey, and Greece. And that kind of got me a little bit hooked on coming back to that space. So in 2014, I got to move to Jerusalem, where I worked where I was studying, and to keep a roof over my head, I worked in a guest house and also assisted on a program that brought pilgrims together from around the world to spend a month in the old city of Jerusalem, overlooking the Dome of the Rock there. So wow. I did that for 3 years.
Wow. So I guess we ought to back up a little bit and let our viewers and listeners kind of, if you could just give an idea, when you're not out walking, what kinds of things are you doing in your professional life?
Yeah. I've worked in education pretty much most of my career in some way, shape or form. Started as a primary or elementary school teacher, became a secondary school teacher, and then moved into what I'm doing now, which is essentially, I guess, adult education. So I work for a governing body of 55 schools across Australia, and part of my responsibility is formation of people working in those schools. So just this morning, I was online with 26 people working in our schools from across the country, doing a part of our induction program, where we talk about the stories that inform who we are and shape what we do. And in addition to that, the other part of my work that I do there is in the area of reconciliation. So with First Nations people here in Australia. So we've got a group called Reconciliation Australia, and they are doing amazing work in trying to build deeper relationships, enhance respect and opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in this country. And so part of my role is supporting our organisation's Reconciliation Action Plan and also reconciliation action plans within our schools across the country.
Wow.
So that's kind of more or less what I do.
I definitely see the teacher in you, whenever you post anything in Pilgrimage in Place or on your own Facebook group, Life is a Pilgrim's Path, which we'll talk about more. But you have a great way of educating people in a very easy to understand format. And like, I could tell that about you from your very first post on Pilgrimage in Place. It's like, this guy really knows his stuff. And your posts are always so interesting and always have a lot of facts in it that I've always found very interesting. So I've always appreciated that. Can you tell me a little bit about the reconciliation? Like, how did you get involved in that?
Yeah, I guess it's one of those areas, part of our history in this land with colonisation, 1788, has been the disadvantage that's caused to the first people of the country. And I grew up in an area where I really didn't know any Aboriginal people. And it wasn't really till I started teaching that I got to meet students and then others. And it's just really important work for us, for me as a settler, white person, to know the history of my country and to know the 65,000 years of history prior to settlement. The Aboriginal peoples are the oldest living continuous cultures in the world. And it's just such a privilege to say that I live in a country and that's part of the culture of the country that I live in. And for many years, I guess we didn't recognise that. We spoke about colonisation and England and all of those sorts of things. And through working with First Nations people, particularly a colleague of mine, Thelma, I've just become more and more immersed in that, and feel it's a really important piece of work within the healing of our country and moving forward. So I think it's the truth telling around that, something that really is really important. So it's just a privilege to be able to do that as part of the work that I do, and to be, I guess, chosen by Thelma and respected for the work and contribution that I can make to that. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, okay. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit and we'll go to the Camino.
Yep.
I always like to ask people, what was that first seed, do you think, that was planted that started the journey of taking that first step on a Camino?
It's funny, I've been watching a few of your podcasts and thinking about that question. And one day I sat down and I said, this was the seed. And then I thought, no, there was a seed before that. So to cut to the chase, I guess it was somewhere in the late 90s, I took a year off work to complete some studies and travel with friends to India. And I guess that was the beginning of my kind of choosing an alternate path to different things. And then somewhere along the way, I heard about this thing called a Camino. Actually, during that year, I think it was about 97 or 98. And all I heard was blisters. The principal of the school I was doing some relief teaching at was on the Camino, and he had a really bad case of blisters. I had no idea what the Camino was. I knew what blisters were. And that kind of sat, I think, until I think it was 2009. There was this great thing on History Channel where this Galician musician called Joel Lopez did a Camino, and he started in the Netherlands. He didn't walk all that way. He took public transport and things until he got to the last 100 kilometers, and then he walked that. But that just had me hooked. It was, 8 episodes. You can kind of pick a couple up on YouTube in Spanish. But it was just wonderful watching this journey. And then, so I bought John Brealey's guide after that, and bought a book called by Joyce Rupp, Camino book.
Oh yeah, what is her?
I stopped thinking. And then, a few years later, The Way came out, and that kind of confirmed everything. And eventually, 2016, I took my first steps from St. Jean Pied de Port. But it's been a long sort of journey. And I think the more I look at the choices I've made, the more I see that walking a Camino is a natural part of who I am and where I was going at that time.
Well, yeah, because I'm thinking, because you said you were in the Holy Land starting back, in 2000?
2000, I visited there in 2000, yeah.
Okay. And then a few years before that, you were in India, heard about the Camino. Yeah, you've had a really exciting life. You've gone to so many fabulous places.
I've been really, really lucky, to have had those opportunities. And I guess not being able to travel for the last couple of years has really reinforced that. Mm-hmm. But it's been nice to kind of take a break and to sort of walk my own country and walk that interior journey. I guess that lockdown and COVID is kind of meant for so many of us.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's, we shared a lot in the Pilgrimage in Place. And you had a quote actually on Life is a Pilgrim's Path that I wanted to talk about if we can.
Sure.
I wanted to share it. You had posted something that Christine Walters Painter had written called What Makes Someone a Pilgrim? Mm-hmm. She said, I also believe that pilgrimage is very much an inner journey and experience. Many can travel long distances and take a lot of pictures. They see things through the lens of a tourist and not through the eyes of a pilgrim. Some may not travel long distances on the outside. The inside, however, is another matter. These pilgrims travel long, arduous, and soul-altering distances. When they do, they are transformed in rewarding and profound ways. When we take inward and outward journeys, we can be pilgrims as long as we stay open to the new experiences. We must always be mindful that pilgrimage is an outer journey that serves our inner transformation. Mm. I just love that whole quote. So I just wonder if we kind of talk about it, because this was one of your posts on your page. And again, didn't I tell everybody his posts are fantastic? So I just wondered, what was going through your mind? What about that quote resonates with you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's that talk about pilgrimage being those two journeys at once. There's an exterior journey and there's an interior journey, and I think that's something that really resonated strongly with me. I guess for the last 3 years I've been training as a spiritual director, and in the Ignatian tradition. And Ignatius was someone who referred to himself as a pilgrim. And he did a lot of walking. He walked to Rome, he walked to the Holy Land, kind of, except he took a boat part of the way. But the bigger journey he went on was that interior journey, that journey where we, I guess, go to the source. I was listening to David White on the weekend, and he talks about these two aspects of our journey, where there's the horizon, and that we're drawn to, and having walked the Camino Frances, that horizon is always there, particularly as you walk through the Meseta. It's just, it's right in front of you. But at the same time, there's an inner journey into the well springs, the source, your identity and who you are. And those two journeys talk to one another. So there are things on the horizon that are calling us, that are drawing us. But if we're really, really open to it, at that same time, we can travel deeply within and discover truths about ourselves and where we're called and what we're meant to do. And the beautiful gift of walking a Camino, particularly if you can walk for an extended period of time, is that you're just drawn into that process. Remember listening to one of your podcasts talking about that sense of attention and intentionality that you bring to what you do, and that time for reflection. So you're not always listening to something on your headphones, you're not always eating tapas and drinking vino tinto and all of those sorts of things. That the Camino just provides you with that space to take that interior journey, that sense of discovery of who you are and what your unique gift is that you offer the world. And I think if you can discover that in that conversation between the space inside and the horizon, then the world's a better place for it.
So well said. Very well said. It's funny, I was just thinking, you said one of the first exposures you had to this was with a school principal that had experienced a lot of blisters, right? Yeah. And we tend to hear a lot about the physical aspect of the Camino or whatever pilgrimage folks are talking about. And I feel like, when we're in those forums and whatnot, there's a lot of focus on blister prevention, what shoes should I wear, and all that, which is great and needed. But there's also this whole inner stuff that's going to happen, right? That inner journey. And I wonder if you have any suggestions for folks that maybe are considering going when their countries open up and are allowed to go. Are there ways that you think, with all of your spiritual training and the work you've done in the Holy Land and whatnot, do you have any ideas on what people could do to help prepare themselves for that inner part, to be more mindful, or how to approach this inner journey that is going to happen alongside the physical challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Leigh. That's a really good question, because we do concentrate on those things like blisters and what to wear and what sort of pack and what sort of boot. And all those things are really important, because I guess if we get those right, they give us space for the real work, which is that interior work. And I think space is that first, space and time are those two really important elements that we need to give ourselves. So the first thing I'd recommend is that if you're going to walk a Camino, give yourself as much time as you can.
Yes.
The more, if it means postponing your Camino for 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, until you can walk twice as many days as you'd originally planned, it's really worth it. It's the longer you have, the more time you can spend being attentive to what you're doing. And the more that process of walking and that simplicity can transform you. And I think I was really lucky when I was preparing for my first Camino. I was also living in a monastery, which was where the guest house, I worked in a guest house in Jerusalem to keep a roof over my head with the studies I was doing there. And that meant downsizing from an apartment to a room. Yes. And I guess one of the things, and even I've had friends who I've walked on Camino with who have sent their bags along each day, but I've said, try and embrace that spirit of simplicity. Pare things down to as little as you can. If you can, in the time leading towards your Camino, simplify your life. People are going to do it when they come back and they've realized after a month away on the Camino and they can live out of a backpack. There's this natural process of getting rid of things. But if you can kind of do that in preparation and really simplify, take time, and begin to train yourself in a sort of reflective process. Within Ignatian tradition, there's an exercise called the Examen, which Ignatius said, it's the only thing you must do. And I'll confess now that I don't do it as often as I would like to do it. But it's a process of reflecting on your day where you ask to be open and attentive to the movement of God within that day. And I've done this with people, I guess, also who don't necessarily come from a religious perspective, but to be open to the joy in your day, the moments of life, the moments that were enriching, enlarging, that gave you joy. And just to sit with those, allow them to appear and to reflect on what that meant for you. What were you seeing in that time? And then to look at the times in the day where maybe things were not so joyful, things were not so life-giving. Maybe there were times where something you did diminished the quality of someone's life or diminished the quality of your own life and your own experience. And then to resolve, in the light of these beautiful experiences you started with and the things you're grateful for, how can you try not to do that the following day? And it's a sense of finishing off by asking for the strength to do that. So I guess those three things would be: really make time for reflection. Try and simplify things as much as you can. Trust that once you've got the right pair of shoes, they'll be the right pair of shoes.
Yep.
And if they're not, you'll find another pair of shoes in Spain. You know, trust that the most important journey is that inner one, and sort of practice that time of regular reflection. And then hopefully that'll transform into your time on the Camino and really benefit you with that inner journey.
Oh, I love that. I love the idea of starting that and doing that in your regular life, right? And so that once you're at Camino, it's just something that's part of a ritual for yourself, you know, and you'll remember to do it. And I really think it would enrich your entire Camino as well as your life. I'm going to look that up. That is really wonderful advice. When you look back at the simplicity of your own backpack, that very first Camino, can you remember anything that you got rid of or sent back home that you found you just didn't need?
I found a number of things I just didn't need. But there's a part of me that said, I'm not going to send them back because I made this choice and I have to live with it.
Ooh, okay. I've never heard that. So you still carried it.
Yeah. And with me, it's that extra set of clothes. Quite often, you know, something nice to wear out at night, or, you know, that extra, my Kindle as well as my phone or a camera. And I've still managed to, after, you know, 4 Caminos and an Aussie Camino, walking in the footsteps of St. Mary MacKillop, which was a 200k journey there, I still managed to pack more than I need. Yeah. So I'm determined maybe the next time I go to remember what I had to carry. And I've gotten better at it.
Yeah. What's the one luxury item that there's no way it's always going to stay in the bag that maybe other people wouldn't even think about?
I still get drawn towards a button-up shirt. Yeah.
Do you feel like you kind of need that for dinner to feel like official, or do you actually wear it while you're walking?
No. Like I just like to walk in a sort of a long sleeve t-shirt sort of thing. So I just kind of I was struck when I walked my first Camino, was somewhere on the Meseta, and this Swiss guy arrived at dinner wearing this crisp blue hiking shirt, and it just looked so, you know, so vibrant. It sort of stuck in my memory. You know, I was in my grungy t-shirt, and you know, I thought I need to feel that sort of looking nice. I've got a lot more comfortable, you know, as I've gone on, but there's still a little bit of vanity in me, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. I confess mine now. So I always went my jean jacket, my blue jean jacket,
Wow.
because I feel like I could throw it over a shirt, and it
Yeah.
looks, it just kind of dresses things up,
Yep.
But it is not a very big one, so I totally get that. Well, let's talk about, out of all of your pilgrimages, what would you say is the funniest thing that you can remember ever happening, that you're just like, I can't even believe that happened, and maybe it happened to you or it happened to somebody else?
I don't know about the funniest thing, but probably one of the more bizarre things was when I finished walking from Leon to Santiago. I arrived on my 50th birthday, which was like really, really cool. And we ended up, there was another person, Pak from Korea, whose birthday it was as well. And we ended up doing tapas and all of that sort of stuff. And then we ended up kind of in the new city of Santiago, singing karaoke until 3 a.m, doing all sorts of bizarre dance moves and impersonations of singers. So I guess singing Love Cats by The Cure, or doing our best David Bowie impressions. That was probably one of the more bizarre Camino experiences, especially considering I don't think I'd been awake past 9:30 for the month prior to that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so 50th birthday, singing one of my favorite songs, Love Cats, at a karaoke bar. What a great 50th birthday party. That sounds amazing.
It was amazing. It was just one of the best days. And got to walk that with my cousin and some people who'd become, I guess, a bit of a Camino family over the last 100K of the Camino. We'd started off walking pretty slowly from Leon to ease my cousin and his mate into it. And then as we picked up speed with everyone else, we kind of found ourselves within a particular group of people moving along, and just to, sing karaoke and share that last day. And it was just a wonderful experience.
Wow, what an amazing memory. That just sounds great. I wonder if you have thoughts about what creates this amazing connection that we make with the other pilgrims? Is it the walking side by side? Is it, why do we open up like that? And how does it become so easy to talk to one another when we don't seem to do that in real life? If we ran down to a coffee shop tonight, we would not have those types of conversations with someone, or at least I don't get to. So I don't know, maybe you do. But what is it about the Camino, or is it pilgrimage in general?
Yeah, I mean, my cousin, I would often say it was like his days backpacking around Europe, but I never did that. But I was looking through some of my journal stuff this morning, and I found a phrase that says, a face becomes a name and a name becomes a story. And it's that beautiful, you see these people day after day. Some of them you happen to walk beside. And there is a beautiful sense of when you're walking beside someone, it is easy to chat. And the other thing is that you've got this gift of time. So there's no rush. There's no worrying about where you need to go to next. You haven't got another appointment to fill.
Yeah. And
you're all headed in the same direction. It's like this community on legs, moving in one direction with one purpose. And I think we let down our barriers because of that. There's, trust, like you're sharing stories sometimes before you even know a person's name.
Right.
We talked about someone as the rocket. And it had even had conversations with this person before we even, knew their name. And, there was English Bob and other sorts of people. And Bob wasn't even his name. But I guess you let down your guard because you've got this beautiful sense of communitas, which is that little bit more than community. it's this coming together, this companionship, breaking bread together, a common purpose, a common destination, and just the time to allow a face to become a name and a name to become a story, and to listen to one another and to be listened to. And I think we all want to be listened to. I mean, this is one of the beautiful things about what you're doing with the Camino Cafe, is giving people this opportunity to be listened to. And I think that's a real gift. And it's something we don't often get in our busy schedules.
No. Thank you for saying that. That's very kind. And, you know, I do feel like we do let down that barrier, right, on the Camino. And you're so right. All of a sudden, people are sharing stories with you, and you're sharing stories. And I feel like since my Camino, I've become a bit of an oversharer. You know, I want to go to Starbucks and tell everyone my story. You know, I want to hear their stories.
Yeah.
But that doesn't feel so appropriate as it does on the Camino. And I'm always curious. I feel like we pilgrims really like to talk about our pilgrimage. And I'm so curious what that's about, you know, like, why do I want to do that? And why do other pilgrims want to do that? Any thoughts along those lines as to, do you find yourself wanting to talk about your pilgrimage?
Give me an excuse. I think it's got to do with love. I think we are a group of people for whom an experience has resonated so deeply and really touched our identity, our sense of who we are. And we love to talk about that. I've got other friends who love to talk about music and who love to talk about football. And I know people who've walked the Camino who don't seem to want to talk about it as much as I do. Because I guess I think it touches everyone, but I don't know if it touches everyone in the same way. And I just found there's a real sense of, I guess that inward journey for me led me to discover things about myself. And I'll talk about it to anyone, and I'll probably over talk about it. I have to remember to ask, am I telling you too much? You know, are you okay with this? Do you want me to stop?
Right. Sometimes I feel like one of those golfers that want to describe, you know, every shot from their first shot till the last hole where they put in on the 18th. That's me about my Camino, right?
Yep.
And I also am always trying to weigh out, I don't want to be that person that's shouting it from the rooftop and turning people off from going, you know, it's like, I want them to be able to have their own experience. But you're right. It so deeply touches us that it's like, I just have to talk about it. Maybe to kind of help me still understand just what happened, you know? So you've done a couple of different routes. I won't make you pick one as your favorite, but has there been a favorite leg or favorite stage within one where you were just like, wow, that was a day, or that was really an experience, a nirvana kind of blissful day where it just says, yeah, that was the Camino in all its glory?
Yeah. I think crossing the Pyrenees is really special.
Yeah. Tell us about
that. It's just such a, I mean, you go over a much higher mountain in Galicia, and again, it's that same thing, that view from the mountaintop, that green. I can picture it, you know, up towards Cruz de Ferro and through Sobrero, entering into Galicia, and then that part in the Pyrenees. But then there are just parts of it walking through the Meseta, through the space, seeing the villages appear in the distance, either from the valley below or on the hill above you, and seeing the castles and and just the endless path. When you get one of those views and you can see the path unfolding ahead of you, and you can see pilgrims along that path. I just think it's that they're the bits that really resonate with me. They're the bits that when I see them on YouTube, or I see them in a, in a story or a video, a movie, they just, you feel them inside. There's just this beautiful sense of, oh, I could go back there,
Yeah.
tomorrow if I could.
Me and you both. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think there's just these moments out there of just bliss.
Yeah.
And it's not any one certain thing. It's like what you're saying. It's that green, the path ahead, the whole image. Almost kind of standing back and seeing it. I wonder if you have any moments on any of your Caminos where you felt like, we talk a lot about Camino angels, Camino magic. Did you have any moments where you personally experienced maybe somebody coming in and providing for you, or where you provided for someone, where you just kind of felt like it was almost this divine experience? Yeah. Maybe something you witnessed with somebody you were walking with.
I think one of the most beautiful things about the Camino is hospitality. And I guess I was working in hospitality before walking the Camino in Jerusalem in the guest house, but I was transformed coming back from the Camino into being working in reception, or serving dinner, or any of those things within the guest house. I think that experience of receiving hospitality from hospitaleros and hospitaleras, from fellow pilgrims, from someone who offered to take my pack for me, or the person who stopped to check that I was okay when I was readjusting something on my foot for blisters. All of those little things, the willingness of someone to give up a chair, or to give you the generosity of their time. And that really, I guess, transformed the way that I saw what I was doing in being hospitable in Jerusalem. And that, so, there's, the day I found my first blister and I was fixing up, putting something over it, and a couple of people stopped. And then I kind of fell back because I was taking way too many photos. And then in the middle of nowhere, there was a food truck selling bocadillos, as you find on the Camino. And, one of those people saw me coming, got out of his chair, walked over to me and said, "Give me your bag and order your lunch and come and sit with us." And it's just those little things like that that I think make it such a special place. There's a willingness to not just listen to people, but to give them your time, and to give them your, to serve them in a sense, and sort of get a sense of, what do you need right now? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you seem like such a soulful guy, just naturally, and deeply spiritual. And it's so exciting to hear that, here you were in Jerusalem in a role similar where you were serving others. And then you go on this Camino and it touches you in such a way that you transform and become an even better host. Like that's amazing.
It was such a gift. I mean, all our journeys move in and out of one another, and so things that were happening in my life made my Camino what it was. And then things that happened on that Camino made my life moving out from that what it is. To the point where, it transformed the way I saw the work that I did. And I was just really took great joy in having that opportunity to serve people.
When we go on Camino, there's the famous quote about, we're sometimes seeking something, right? Something that we think we want. And then the Camino often serves us something that we need, that we didn't even expect. Do you think that was the thing that you received, or was there other things that were unexpected for you, that, you kind of did this Camino for maybe one reason, but other things kind of transformed for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that one, because I often think about this, the Camino give us what we need. And it may or may not. I think it's got to do with the attention that we pay to it. I think it's got to do with our openness to what might happen.
Yeah.
And so I guess for me, I was able to take the lessons I learned on the Camino and apply them into what I was doing from that. Did I need that? Yeah, I guess I did need that. I probably needed lots of other things as well. But I think the more we're open to the experience, the more that we're prepared to engage in that conversation between the horizon and the depths within us, the more we're going to get. And I was reading a book the other day, someone walking their Camino, and I was waiting for some transformation to happen with them, and it never happened. And it was kind of a disappointing book. I'm not sure what that person got, but I guess it's, what do I need to stop talking about in order to talk about the important things? And yeah, I think walking the Camino has helped me to reflect on that. What are the important things? What do I want to do with my time? What do I want to do with my life? Where do I want to put my energies? Because we've only got a short time, and we never know when that's going to change.
Right.
So I guess it's that sense of the Camino can give you, the experience of walking the Camino can give you so much if you're prepared to engage it in conversation.
Yes.
Give it the time and give it the respect. Yeah. And listen to what it has to say.
Great. Because I think a lot of times you can go into that pilgrimage thinking that your Camino is ending once you've arrived. For me, I'm finding that the Camino just keeps on going, right? The transformation. And you may not even be aware of what that transformation is upon walking into the square, right? Like I'm sure that you have seen your journey making turns and different things that maybe you didn't even expect after your Caminos. Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting thing because, like, if I was walking a Camino 400 years ago or 900 years ago, it would be a journey from my front door to Santiago and back to my front door. So already we've changed that notion of what a pilgrimage is by saying it's a plane trip to A and then a walk to B, and that's the end. Well, it's like it's not the end, it's the end of one stage, it's the end of a part of the journey, but it's an invitation to walk further. It's an invitation to integrate what you've learned on that journey into your life. It's an invitation to say yes to other adventures. And I think John Briley speaks very much about life as pilgrimage.
Yes.
So if we're lucky enough to walk a Camino de Santiago, any Camino de Santiago, it's not the whole journey. It's a part of that journey, and it can be transformational if we want to continue that journey after reaching Santiago.
Yes.
To be open to what's next.
Yeah, because there's always a next. If
there is,
Yeah. It's that whole opening, right? And, I think that you probably can attempt to walk not being open, being obsessed with where you're going to stay that night, being obsessed with maybe listening to music or whatever it is to avoid being open and vulnerable. But if you're willing to put all of that down and just kind of open to intuition and open to whatever happens, I mean, your Camino can really be enhanced by all of that.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm always curious about my own self, but also almost every pilgrim I talk to, it's very rare. Really, I can only think of maybe one person that has ever said to me that they don't want to go back. I've only had one person that's told me that. I wonder if you have a feeling like of what makes the majority of Camino pilgrims want to go back and sometimes walk the same exact path, right? Not even try a different route, but like there are many pilgrims I've spoken to that have walked from St. John, 8-10 times. What's going on there in your opinion? What makes us want to do that?
Someone said like the Camino is a glimpse of heaven. It's a glimpse of life as it could be. We spoke before about that openness to one another and that openness that's there and that companionship and all of those things. And I found myself like, I sent my cousin a message the other day saying, I really need to walk the whole of the Camino Frances again. But then I saw Efren Gonzalez posting from the Camino Primitivo, and I said, why would I walk the Frances again when I haven't walked the Primitivo, I haven't finished the Portuguese? I wonder what it is, and I don't know if I have an answer as to why people get caught up in walking the same Camino time and time again. Maybe there's unfinished business, or maybe people are happy with having had a particular experience and wanting to have that experience again and think that they'll only get that in walking this particular route.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. So you've walked 4 in Spain. Did you have expectations? Was it hard to remain open and not compare one Camino to the other one? Like, did you ever feel like, well, this isn't the Frances, or wow, this is so much better, did you find challenge in that to not judge?
I guess they're all so different, aren't they? Like, so from walking from Tui to Santiago and then on to Finisterre, people were saying, oh, you won't enjoy that. It's not as great, beautiful as the Frances. There's too many pavements. And, with the exception of a couple of little bits of, industrial areas, it was beautiful. And it was a beautiful experience with a particular group of people at a particular time, which was different to the experience I had on the Frances. And then again, when I walked at the end of 2019, I was the only pilgrim heading towards Santiago in my vicinity. I knew there were people way ahead that I would never catch. And the only 2 other pilgrims I met were heading to Fatima. So that was a really different pilgrimage. It's so like, you can do the Camino Frances on your own or the Portuguese, but you'll never be alone. I did this one on my own and I was alone. But what it meant is that I could then open up to locals. So I had some great conversations in cafes and with the owners of the accommodation that I stayed at. And I was more courageous in my saying hello, bon dia and all of this sort of stuff, that maybe I wouldn't have been, that comfortableness you have with other pilgrims, I had to kind of enter into with locals in a sense. And 3 very different experiences. I mean, I don't want to compare them because they're all different and they all I was a different person each time I walked those, and I got things out of each particular one. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the
Yeah.
question.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but I think that's, yeah, I don't know if I should compare them. I'm now in the space where I'd like to walk I'd like to finish the Portuguese Camino.
Mhm.
And then I'd love to walk something like the Primitivo or the Camino San Salvador through Asturias and through the mountains, or the Camino del Norte, which is a whole other experience as well.
Exactly. I feel like there's so many to try now that I'm not even sure which one I want to do next, but I want to do them all. But I
Yeah,
think you really touched on something that I think about is that I'm in such a different place. I don't know if I'm a different person, but in such a different place than I was back in 2019 when I walked, right?
Mhm.
And I especially think after this pandemic, there's a lot to process.
Yeah,
And I do very much feel pulled to walk again, to begin processing all that's happened during all this time. Um, yeah, it's very interesting and very interesting to look at the different draws of which route to do.
yeah,
There's, yeah, I think seeing so many lovely photos this past year has really inspired me to go on the Norte. And now Ignatius, am I right that Ignatius, there's also a path,
yeah. There's an
right?
Ignatian pilgrimage starting up in Loyola, which is near
Okay.
the Norte, and heading down towards Montserrat and Barcelona.
Wow.
And you cross through the Frances. There's one stage that they share in common, but you're walking in the opposite direction to the people going to Santiago. So I've got a desire maybe to walk that one day. But it's interesting, you had Sandy Brown on just recently, and I've been lucky enough to listen to him a couple of times, and he said you really should walk every Camino as if it's the only Camino you're ever going to walk. Because I think sometimes you think, oh yeah, next time I come back, I'll do this. And like I was thinking next time within a week of starting my first Camino, I knew this is something I really enjoyed and something I wanted to do again and again. And I think this pause in life through the coronavirus and the pandemic has really, I like yourself, you're saying so much to process when we get to walk again, but such gratitude to be able to do that again. I really want to make that next one. I just want to enter into it as fully as I can and not hold anything back. Because you
Yes,
never
right.
know, you just may never get to do it again. It may be your one and only chance. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that because I think, I had planned several for 2020. And not that I think I took things for granted in a bad way, but I certainly never dreamed, it was always, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to be right back here. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to do that. And I had all these plans and, never in really our lifetime have we been prevented from traveling.
No.
That this time, I feel like people are probably going to see me bend down and kiss the path when I arrive and really mean it. It is a privilege to travel. It is a privilege to be able to walk on that path. And I can't wait to get back.
Yeah.
And I think I think walking it with the regard that, hey, we may never be back here again. Let's do it all. Let's open the heart and really do it.
Yeah.
If somebody's sitting out there listening to us talking today, I know they've probably heard a lot of things that you've said that would inspire them to go, but sometimes for folks, it is, it's going to be kind of a scary time to go back and travel, possibly for some people, or there's going to be people that, have never traveled to Spain. Maybe somebody's never gone on a solo trip. That was a big deal to me when I decided to do that.
Yeah.
What would you say to encourage someone? I mean, you've done some pretty amazing things, walking in the Holy Land, walking by foot, taking a trip by foot is certainly takes a lot of courage, a lot more courage than scheduling a resort vacation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about those two things. What is it about taking this transformational trip that you're doing by foot versus, taking the easy route and having, drinks out at a resort? Let's start there. What is it about taking this journey by foot that's so radically different?
When you're walking, you're at this speed. Like, since I walked my first Camino, my natural walking pace has decreased.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm a little bit older, but I found that I walk more slowly. I love to savor things. Walking and thinking, they complement one another beautifully.
Yes.
And you've got that wonderful thing of there's the body likes the fact that you're moving, and it creates chemicals and all of that sort of sciencey stuff that I was never really good at. But I get a sense that our body produces things that make us feel better when we exercise and when we walk. And I know the difference between not getting up in the morning on Camino and not wanting to walk, and then being happy to walk for the next 4 or 5 hours, was generally about 30 to 45 minutes. Within that first 30 to 45 minutes, everything had warmed up, everything was happening, things were cruising along, you were seeing things you'd never see sitting in your chair by the pool with your martini. You're seeing things differently than you'd see from a train or a bus or a car. When you walk through, some pilgrimages in the old city of Jerusalem, it's a kilometre by a kilometre. Some companies would have you picked up by a bus on one side of this walled city and drive you around to the other side. Whereas you can walk through the alleyways, up and down, and it's a city that's full of hills, it's built on hills. But the quality of what that experience offers, because you have physically engaged in it, is something that is different to just sitting back and watching life go by and doing those sorts of things. I think for me, that's that biggest thing. And it does take a bit of courage. It does take a little bit of, imagination to even engage in this, because it's not the sort of thing that's traditionally been sold to us. It's not the sort of thing that we often see on television, although facing this other way of doing things. My 21-year-old godson, I talked to him about the Camino, and hopefully he'll walk it with me and a couple of my brothers and one of my other nephews at least in a couple of years' time. He says, yeah, friends of mine are talking about it. There's something about this that we're rediscovering slow tourism, I guess. And once you've been to Europe, with the exception of some big ticket items, a piazza and a cafe and a pavement, they kind of look a lot the same, whether you're in Portugal or Spain or Italy, and just placing yourself gently into that and wandering and walking, I think, is just good for the soul.
I see it as you were saying that, I've done that resort trip, a couple of times to different places, but I can tell you this, I don't talk about those trips. I can barely remember them.
Yeah.
But every step of my Camino, I feel like I can remember,
Yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't be trying to have a podcast about vacations at XYZ resort, right? Like, there's just something about the walk, something about the slow travel, everything you've been saying, the speed at which we're doing and how it opens our mind. It's is so radically different. And I would say to anybody that's listening to us today that, we're waiting for the world to reopen so that we can go back and do this thing. We're not sitting here talking about going to a resort and having a drink, right? Like this is, and to me, that should encourage anyone to go, and that it's so worth it. But is there anything else that you would say to give someone courage about traveling alone? And because you did do that quite a bit on that last part of your one Camino where, there weren't a lot of pilgrims around.
I think it's trust yourself and trust that, particularly with Spain, Spain's a good place. Portugal's a good place. People are good. Yes, things happen, and there've been a couple of really sad incidents that have happened on the Camino. But particularly if you're feeling a little uncertain, if you're a little unsure and you don't quite have you can't quite imagine what it's going to be like. And imagination plays such an important part. You've got to be able to imagine yourself in this stream of people, held up in these people, moving along the Frances or the Portuguese, sharing the same desire as you to really experience this journey in a particular way. And know that even if you go on your own, unless you go in the middle of winter in a part of the Camino that no one else walks like I did, you won't be alone.
Yeah.
And even then, there are a whole lot of locals who are really nice to me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my goodness, this was such a great conversation. I've so enjoyed talking to you today. And I want to make sure everybody does follow your Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, please check out Life as a Pilgrim's Path. And you can follow all of Mark's musings about pilgrimage, and he's got a lot of great quotes and videos and different things on there. Is there, and Pilgrimage in Place is still out there. So of course, join that group. It hasn't been as active recently, but with the world reopening, we're kind of maybe getting out and walking to other places. But is there anywhere else they should check in with you, or anything else you want to add before we finish up today?
No, thanks, Leigh. It's just been it's been a real joy just spending time speaking to you, hearing your passion, the joy, the gift that you give in allowing people into this space to listen and to speak. And, the more we can do that, the better the world is. And my Life as a Pilgrim's Pace Facebook page, I try and add to that 2 or 3 times a week. It depends on work and study and various other things, but I guess it's a place where I share ideas, share thoughts, share some of those journeys, both to the Holy Land and along El Camino on the Portuguese and on the Frances. And I'd really love it if people would visit that. And if there's anything I can do, I kind of feel my calling with the Camino is a bit of accompaniment, a bit of mentoring, that sort of thing. I'm more than happy to listen and to talk and to help people prepare for those journeys and do all of those sorts of things. I guess it's my way of giving back for everything that the Camino has given me.
Well, I love that. Well, you are definitely getting a big following on that page, and I think it's due to the quality of things that you're posting. And everybody, you just heard him offer. You got a multi-veteran of many paths of the Camino as well as the Holy Land. So if you're wanting advice about your next Camino, you've got a great resource here, and you can reach him on his page. And where's that photo taken? Is that new photo you just posted?
Yeah.
Your background.
That is on the Camino Portuguese, and it's heading towards, I think, Pontevedra.
Okay, I love it.
It's gorgeous, isn't it?
Yes, it's gorgeous. At first I was like, oh, did he Photoshop that? And I'm like, no, I think that's really a sign there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
I take lots of pictures of signs.
Yeah, well, your photographs are beautiful that you've shared on Pilgrimage in Place. I've always enjoyed them.
Thank you.
I so much appreciate your time today. And it's been so nice to just get to chat with you. I feel like this has been one of those conversations, that we would have had side by side out on the Camino, that we would have said, let's stop up at this next cafe and have a little snack and keep talking. So I've so enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best. I hope that you get back out on a Camino very, very soon as things are safe to do so. And who knows, maybe we'll meet up on one of these paths one day. I think it's the power of this Camino connection, where we feel like, we know people over this last year that we've gotten to talk to, and it's been so special. So thank you for all the things that you've shared throughout this past year. I know it's really helped a lot of people get through stuff, and hopefully we'll all be back there soon. So thank you, and please stay on. Well, you're welcome. Thank you for all the kind words. And now stay on. I'm going to close out our call, but stay on so you and I can say goodbye. And I just want to say to everyone, please feel free to comment. I will put links to Mark's page on the show notes, and please stay tuned. I think we have some exciting things coming up, a lot of great interviews. We've got St. James Feast coming up this Sunday, and what a special time it is right now. And we just wish the world healing. And until we see everyone again, just want to say Buen Camino, and we hope to see you on the path. So until next time, everyone.
Buen Camino.